Thanks for joining us. A judge entered pleas of not guilty to all charges for Bryan Kohberger at his arraignment on Monday, more than 7 months after detectives alleged that he fatally stabbed 4 University of Idaho undergrads in their off-campus home. Deputies escorted Kohberger into the courtroom around 9 in the morning, where he stood before Judge John Judge, the defendant wearing an orange jumpsuit, no handcuffs, smiling at his defense attorney and public defender Ann Taylor. He then sat quietly. And I want to go ahead and bring in Joseph Giacolone. He's a retired NYPD sergeant who supervised the detective squad and many investigations over his more than 2-decade career in law enforcement. Now he's a professor at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice. Good morning, Joseph, and thanks so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox to discuss this. Wanted to jump right into this, Joseph. What did it mean by Kohberger there standing silent, and is that typical?
Yeah, it's not very typical. I was looking for some historical references. I really couldn't find any. So it forces the judge to put in the plea for him. So this is a question really for the defense attorney about how they're jockeying for some sort of position, whatever. All I know is that from my experience, defense attorneys don't do anything unless there's a reason for it. So we're going to see it. I mean, listen, we know that the death penalty is on the table and there's going to be some negotiating for that. So we're going to see now, just have to be patient with a lot of what's happening in this case.
What did you make of his demeanor in just that brief little snippet that we're seeing there as an investigator?
Yeah, it's tough to give him a read, but he seems to be pretty calm. He's given that part of he's confident kind of thing. This is not, like I said, unusual. So this is what defense attorneys prep them. They tell them what to do, what not to do, what to say, what not to say. Even maybe put a smile on. The only thing that we're missing here is that his voice in regarding to what he wants to do. So that's just something that I think a lot of people were disappointed in, and that's why there's a lot of chatter about it on the internet specifically.
Now, down to the brass tacks of this case, then, what do you think investigators have in evidence? What do we know that they have in evidence? And obviously, the charges against this person, Bryan Kohberger, they're incredibly serious. And it seems like the chips are stacking up against him.
Well, this seems to be what we refer to as the, forensic horseman, right? So we have internet records, we have phone records, and we have surveillance records so far. And we've seen a lot of financial records that have been dropped. So the issue that comes down to is we don't know why. So I think they had a PayPal, they had some other things going on even for the victims. So there are a lot of financial records that we don't really know about. But here's the thing. We know we have the knife, not the knife, excuse me, the sheath. We know we have his DNA. And the fact that there is a eyewitness to this whole thing, which was a big surprise, if you remember, when they first came out with that. So that's something that was this eyewitness able to identify him. So they had to probably go through either a photo array or even a live lineup. We don't know what the results were or if they've even done that by now. If they haven't, that's not a good thing, because the longer it goes, the less likelihood the person is going to be able to identify them. Now, to me, the most important part is that car, and that car could hold a lot of forensic evidence, because we know that if he, in that bloody scene that we've been told about, there's no way that he didn't transfer some of that evidence inside the car, right? We call that local exchange principle, the theory of transfer between evidence between the crime scene, the people, and also the suspect. So, and think about the house, his apartment, right? They say they had animal hairs, they had all kinds of stuff that they took out of that. And I think it's just, I think a lot of people are impatient, but I think there is a lot of evidence that is stacking up against him.
With all of the discussions around this case and him being a criminal justice student, do you think that he was the tactful criminal justice expert, if you will, that some have made him out to be?
Well, I mean, he's wearing an orange jumpsuit, so I would probably say no to that. But the issue that comes down to, he wasn't the first one to do this, and he won't be the last. I mean, it goes just by, do you hope that as a professor of criminology, do you hope that you're not making better criminals? Of course you do. But, the same thing can be said for business schools. I mean, we have plenty of business crimes, and look at our political science and our politicians. So the list just goes on and on. These incidents are going to happen no matter what people course of study. They have all kinds of new information. But listen, when you're working in this environment and you're doing these things, you can't learn really from a book about what you need to do. You have professionals out there who do this for a living. There's a big difference between what you can learn in a book and what you actually do in practical experience.
Absolutely. And of course, it's very hard to even imagine that somebody would even do the things that have happened in this case. So many are looking at that as well. Where do you think this goes next?
Well, I mean, we're going to see if these preliminary hearings go off. A lot of the cases, a lot of people, don't realize that a lot of these cases are won or lost in those preliminary hearings. So we call it a map hearing here in New York, but a map hearing is just basically, was the evidence taken without, within the guidelines of the Fourth Amendment and those kind of things. And then there's going to be all kinds of things if he made it, if they spoke to him, if he said anything. So all of those things are going to play out, and I think we're going to hear a lot about those things going forward in the next few weeks. And just like all I just tell my friends that are really interested in this case is you just need to be patient. This is an incident that dealing with a state and different laws about gag orders and stuff like that. And I don't think we're going to see cameras in the courtrooms. It's going to be quite interesting and frustrating for people.
I can only imagine, especially for the families of those victims in this case, and so many others there in Moscow, Idaho. Joseph Giacolone, a criminal investigations expert, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Giacomo.